What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Yao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's first domestically made submarine prototype, known as the Haikun or Narwhal, has been spotted in a harbor in Kaohsiung. Local media have reported that the prototype is undergoing testing of its power and other related systems. The project has faced scrutiny as sea trials to make sure it can operate in rough waters have been delayed. Experts say these latest tests may indicate that sea trials are getting closer and could begin soon after harbor testing is finished. Migrant domestic workers say they face discrimination from the government by being excluded from the National Labor Insurance Program. They say this leaves them vulnerable if they have a child or are hurt in an accident.
We contribute a lot to Taiwan's care economy, but why we are treated less? We are the savior of Taiwanese households so that the family lives better. This is not just and fair. This is inhumane.
Groups representing migrant cleaners and other domestic staff protested outside the Labor Ministry to call for a change to its policy on the eve of International Domestic Workers' Day. They say the more than 200,000 migrant workers keeping Taiwan's households running deserve better. The Labor Ministry says it will encourage migrant workers and their employers to discuss insurance and have employers offer greater coverage. Now, over 800,000 migrant workers keep Taiwan running as the country's population ages and shrinks. A new program is changing the rules about how long they can stay, aiming to plug a growing gap in the labor force. John Van Trieste has this story.
Anna from Indonesia has been caring for Taiwan's elderly and disabled for over a decade. Until recently, migrant workers like her could only stay in Taiwan for 12 to 14 years total, meaning she'd have to leave for good before too much longer. But thanks to a rule change that took effect in 2022, migrant workers with at least 6 years' experience can apply to stay on, with a guaranteed higher wage. She's excited to have been approved in January.
我不想回家了，为什么？因为在台湾是很好赚钱呐，然后我那个老板什么都对我们是很好的。
She is lucky because her employer wanted her to stay too. He's gone through multiple caregivers but found a good match in Anna.
也是要想尽办法能够按照他讲的那个条件下去做，薪资还是要照样提高，休假什么还是要照样的。
Behind this story is a sharp demographic decline that's left Taiwan running out of options to fill crucial roles. This is the year Taiwan's projected to become a super-aged society, with a fifth of the population in the 65 or older group.
那但是比较重点还是希望说这些资深、已经技术成熟的移工可以留下来。那因为现在在国内对于中阶的这个人才，其实也是蛮缺乏的。
Migrant labor has helped plug this gap. As of the end of April, there were more than 833,000 migrant workers in Taiwan, the majority from Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. They do a range of jobs, from factory work to in-home care. The program aims to make Taiwan more attractive to these workers by offering a longer career, rather than just a decade or so to make as much money as possible. But even some who welcome the idea are uneasy. Those who are allowed to stay are owed higher pay, and making up the difference could prove tough for the many low-income people employing caregivers. They agree conditions should be better, but who's going to foot the bill?
我们现在是诱因不够，所以人才来的越来越少。那当然，开放久用的话，会是一个好的会是增加诱因。长久来看的话，还是要提高怎么讲？要劳动条件要好一点。
The Labor Ministry is providing some help. It will hand out monthly subsidies worth around $100 to employers for the first 3 years. It's also going to waive a monthly fee employers normally have to pay to ensure migrant workers' employment stability, making it less expensive to retain experienced workers. Faced with the reality of a quickly aging population, the hope is that experienced migrant workers who've come to know Taiwan will keep their skills here. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thousands of protests opposing the Trump administration have been held across the U.S. and the world, organized to fall on the same day as a military parade in Washington, D.C. This comes amid ongoing tensions over workplace immigration raids. Cadence Quaranta reports.
No kings! No kings! No kings!
No kings is what people across the U.S. were chanting on Saturday at thousands of protests organized in all 50 states to stand against U.S. President Donald Trump. Protesters argue Trump considers himself above the rule of law and say they're out on the streets to protect democratic values.
Well, I mean, America's about democracy. What we're seeing right now is not democracy. It's about one person, their ego, their agenda. It's just not really about, the land of the free, home of the brave. It's about one person trying to be a king.
I believe that Donald Trump is destroying our country. He has sold out democracy that to the highest bidder. He is really only in this for himself.
I'm here to demonstrate my right to protest against a regime that is taking away people's rights.
Most protests were peaceful, filling streets and plazas, congregating outside state capitals and city halls.
Down with deportation! Down with deportation!
All true.
But in several cities, there were clashes with police. In Los Angeles, police fired tear gas and rubber bullets as they attempted to clear out protesters. The nationwide protests come as anger has deepened over federal workplace immigration raids, culminating in days of unrest in Los Angeles. The protests were also organized to coincide with a military parade in Washington, D.C., celebrating the Army's 250th anniversary, which has faced criticism by some who say the Trump administration is politicizing the military and wasting taxpayer dollars. The No Kings protests have also spread across the world, with people in Mexico, Germany, Britain, and Taiwan taking part, in an effort, they say, to stand in solidarity with those in the U.S., making their voices heard against the Trump administration. Devin Tsai and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Tehran has canceled nuclear talks with the U.S. as Israel and Iran launched more airstrikes at each other over the weekend. Military targets and infrastructure have been hit in Iran, while several parts of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv have been damaged. Iran says dozens of people have been killed in the country, with Israel reporting several casualties. Israel first launched strikes on Iran on Friday after a UN report found that Tehran was not meeting its non-proliferation obligations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says strikes will escalate in the coming days. Taiwanese opera is getting a global twist. In a bold move to reach new audiences, one troupe is teaming up with a European director to reimagine classic Western plays. Cadence got a sneak peek at their final dress rehearsal.
A production that pushes the boundaries of what Taiwanese opera can be. This opera, performed entirely in Taiwanese daigi, is an adaptation of a 17th century French comedy, with parts of the story set in ancient China, a bold, cross-cultural take on a traditional art form.
怎么样去展现它的无限可能性，这样的一个雄心壮志是最重要的。
Taiwanese opera has been around for over a century. It was once the most watched art form in Taiwan, especially popular in the 1940s to the 1980s. But for years, its audience has been declining, with less interest among younger generations. It's for this reason that Yixin, a leading Taiwanese opera troupe founded over 35 years ago, has begun expanding beyond the stories and characters normally seen in traditional operas, trying new things to attract new audiences.
它其实它就是为了生存，它必须去符合现代时代的潮流。现在的观众想要看什么，他要根据那个潮流去做它一个改变，去做它的一个变革。
The troupe incorporated LGBTQ issues, adapted a novel, and in recent years has performed adaptations of 2 Western plays, working with German-born, France-based director Lucas Hemleb. This one, titled A Maze of Mirth and Mirage, is their second collaboration with Hemleb. It centers around a story of a father trying to find out about his runaway son, involving many twists, turns, and allusions. It was first performed last year in Taipei and is back this year for a 2-night run at the National Kaohsiung Center for the Arts in southern Taiwan. Hemleb says he's drawn to Taiwanese operas in part because they involve improvisation, similar to an early genre of Italian theater, and in part because of how much the art form values tradition, which he says is not always the case in Europe.
因为我们在欧洲有与传统一个特别的问题，因为我们很容易抛弃传统，因为这个传统是一个非常珍贵的，要保留的珍贵的事情，所以我觉得东方可以教我们一点一个另外的想法。
But at the same time, he says, tradition can evolve.
一边保留着传统，另一边发展一个特别的观念。台湾是比较年轻的国家，一个年轻的社会，所以他们有可能性。
A maze of mirth and mirage retains many elements of traditional Taiwanese opera, like the language, singing, and movement styles, especially during fight scenes. While also incorporating more Western elements, among them the stage design.
我们这次要呈现的是一个，比较奢华复杂的巴洛克式的风格，所以你可以看到我们的舞美设计呢，你可以感受到浓浓的巴洛克式的那个风格。
Actors were encouraged to think more about the complexity of their characters than they normally would for traditional Taiwanese operas.
像传统歌仔戏呢，它本来就有一些既定的一个表演模式，还有文化底蕴。那这一次卢卡斯导演用《欢愉迷宫》这一出戏跟我们合作的时候呢，在表演的方面呢，其实对于角色人物的复杂性还有立体面，让演员有更多的一个探讨。
Coming from different backgrounds, the first collaboration between Hemleb and the Yixin troupe was not without its challenges, like communication difficulties and language barriers. But eventually, they learned to work together. Hemleb directs in Mandarin, but doesn't speak much Taiwanese Daigi. So this time, to work effectively, he relied on memorizing the entire script. And after collaborating on 2 projects, they're already talking about the future. Hemleb says he'd like to work with Yixin again, this time on an adaptation of the work of French playwright Molière. And he also dreams of taking these performances abroad, to share Taiwanese opera in other parts of the world, a dream Sun shares.
我会很期待的是说，当哪一天我在欧洲的这块土地上，会听到我熟悉的七字调、都马调，我很熟悉的这些歌仔戏的曲牌，可是是在上演欧洲人耳熟能详的经典故事，这是一个多么有趣的一个交流跟结合啊！
Bold ideas like this, decades after the heyday of Taiwanese opera, are breathing new life into a traditional art form, which the Yixin Opera Troupe says is a necessary evolution amid changing audiences and changing times. Klein Wang, Peachy Zhuang, and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
And thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, we're heading to the streets of La Paz, Bolivia, where the traditional Festival of the Great Power is taking place. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.